All right, here we go. For those of you who were on it early, obviously this week due to the Super Bowl, The Last of Us aired early on Friday night. It was on demand over here via Sky or Now or on HBO Max internationally. So we obviously got on it and we're meeting up earlier than usual. We're having this conversation on Sunday because we just couldn't wait to talk about this episode. It was absolutely phenomenal. The story of Henry and Sam endure and survive. We're going to go into the spoilerverse, guys. So look, there will be spoilers from this point on. The usual rule of spoilers that we have here. If you've seen the latest episode, you're grand. You're up to date. You don't have to have played the games. We're going to discuss some of the games, but we only want to do that to be able to please people who played the games and kind of reference kind of the things that they will have noticed, but also to enhance people who haven't played the games and give some backstory as well behind it. So don't worry, we're not going to give any plot spoilers for anything beyond this episode. If you've seen it, you're safe. But if you haven't seen the episode, go watch it. If you haven't watched it, what have you been doing with your life? Come back to us and listen to our review. Joining me this week, we only have one Kevin. We've got the one, but it's enough. It's more than enough. The one and only Kevin Keane joining us from Fan Club. Kev, how you doing?
I'm doing really good, Rick. Really good.
Are you emotionally broken?
You
will get this.
I will get this. Like
the finale of this, you're gonna be like
the finale. There'll be one episode I get through without calling you Rick. I swear to God. We've been chatting for like 20 minutes now, and I haven't even got it once. And then it's just like, as soon as he is,
it's when the red light goes on.
Yeah, the red light goes on. It's like, Rick, shit, damn it, Jer. I'm doing good though. I'm doing good.
Good. That's what I like to hear. Look, dying to talk about this, but first off, we're going to get everyone back into the mix, back into the episode. We're going to do our alt recap and remind everyone of the episode we're discussing, and then we'll chat about the episode. So we kicked off this week with an in-depth look at Sam and Henry's backstory that led them to Joel and Ellie at the end of last episode. We learned that Sam is deaf, as is the actor who plays him, if you didn't know that, which some might call a handicap, but I think is a real advantage here in a way, because now he doesn't have to listen to the loud minority, a toxic video game fans whine that it wasn't like that in the games. It was different. Back in the present, Henry and Joel agreed to team up and try escape from the underground, where they encounter an old makeshift classroom where people had obviously tried to care for kids. There was toys, there was comic books, and there was even a soccer goal. Joel and Henry rest their feet and have some gruff dad chats like they're dropping the kids off in the giraffe center, while Ellie and Sam play some soccer. And in true American style, Ellie was pretty class at it, while the lads, they were a bit muck, to be honest. Just as it seemed like we made it all the way to safety, they came across the sniper, which Joel had to sneak around to dispose of in a kind of scene that was like all of us, anyone who's played the game, has it burned and seared into their memory. In this case, Joel finds an elderly man with a terrible shot behind the scope, and this is where like Kathleen's plans start to come apart for me, because I don't know why Kathleen thought that sending Uncle Albert would work as the last line of defense, but it goes down alongside, I'm gonna shoot the only doctor in the village out of anger because some bald lad told me my mate couldn't be saved, in the terms of awful decisions made by the lead of the NPCs. And just as it appears that our heroes are in the clear again, the entire NPC army arrive to take out 4 people. Again, awful strategy by Kathleen. What is she doing? This is like goes down in the pantheon of sending all the king's horses and all the king's men to mend an egg. Who's minding the town, Kathleen, so you can try to murder children? What are you doing? Why is this the plan? This is literally the definition of putting all your eggs in one basket. And the plan works about as well as it deserved to, as an absolute shitload of infected emerge, presumably from underneath the sign that Kathleen and Perry encountered last week saying, warning, a shitload of infected. And with an assist from Joel behind the sniper rifle, our heroes make it to safety. Or so we think. As in the safe house, Sam confides in Ellie that he got bit during the melee. Instead of, telling a grown-up, Ellie tries to heal him with her blood, the drama of which was a bit undermined a bit when she started singing like Jesus from Family Guy. Shock horror, the cure for mankind isn't wiping your bloody hand on someone's cut, as Ellie awakes to an ambush in the morning. Out of instinct, Henry stops Joel and takes out Sam himself before turning the gun on himself when he realizes what he's done. I don't have many murder-suicide jokes and would really rather not start bawling my eyes out again by reliving this on a Zoom call, so I'll just say it was all very sad, and that was episode 5, Endure and Survive. Henry and Sam, we met them here, Kev. Very important characters to both the story, to Joel and Ellie's evolution, but also to like the characters that gamers like us hold deep in our hearts.
Yeah.
Did they do this justice?
They did in a different way because of the way TV is formatted, I think. Because in the, and I don't mean to kind of start being like in the game, but in the game you spend a lot more time with them, I think, and there's even a section in the game where you and Sam get separated with, so it's Joel and Sam and Henry and Ellie, and there's you've a lot more time kind of getting to know the characters. So in the way they did it this way, they did do it justice, but I kind of felt like it was an overly complicated way of doing it.
Okay.
I think the whole story of why Henry had to do what he did to get Sam's leukemia medication as well was a far too overly complicated plot point. Instead of just like in the game where it's just they're on the run from raiders and that's it, and that's all you really need to know. But I get why they did it, to give you a bit more, to give them a bit more heart, and think you give a shit about them a little bit more. I think that's the reason why they did that. But it was just, for me, it didn't really work in a way. I kind of felt the game did it a little bit better.
Yeah, and that's fair. And like, again, with the advantage of having games is, look, you're spending 20 hours with these people rather than 9 or 10 that we're getting, you know, so that makes sense. And you're actually living with these people. And there's, like you said, the kind of part where you're broken up, and like it's I think it's Joel and Sam and Ellie and Henry.
Yeah.
You get, as Joel, you get to kind of know Sam, and you kind of get to build a relationship with him in a way that you just don't get the opportunity, because most of the time you just see, as you saw in the episode, they covered this very well. You see Ellie and Sam playing in the background, but that is very much happening in the background, and Joel's focus is where it is. It's similar to the way it is in the show. What I think they were going for here is, I think they were going for shades of grey. And what I liked about the way they portrayed Henry and Sam was Henry kind of doesn't even see himself as the good guy. When he speaks to Joel, and in the clip we had that preceded this, he kind of says, I'm actually worse than Fedra. I'm a collaborator, you know, and Joel gets up on his high horse, like, I don't work with rats. And it's like, you were literally dealing drugs to a Fedra guy like a few episodes ago. What are you talking about? But with that as well, like, there was kind of this aspect of, we learn how good of a person Kathleen's brother was. And I kind of had a feeling, like, we even texting during the week where I'm like, could Kathleen's brother have been Ish? Like, I was kind of getting a bit ahead of myself, but like, I was kind of thinking, could he be a good person? And could there be a bit of more complexity there? And I think that's what they were going for. We'll talk about how the NPC's legacy will be as well, but I think they were trying to show all sides here, and they were trying to say, look, nobody's good here, nobody's bad, everyone's just doing what they need to do to survive. And like, they're just intersecting. Their stories are intersecting, and that's just what's happening. And we say that Joel and Ellie and Henry and Sam are heroes, but that's just because they're point of view characters. Maybe they're not heroes. There could be a world where we just look at this through slightly different lens, or it's edited differently, and Kathleen and Perry are the heroes, you know. And a few weeks ago they got rid of Fedra, like the murderous kind of Nazis. Like, if we looked at it then, we'd probably see them as heroes. And we might, if you told it from their standpoint, you might view Joel and Henry and Sam as kind of as the villains of this piece, which I think is interesting. Whether it succeeded or not, I don't know. I did really like this episode. Like, this episode for me is up there with episode 3, like, because the highs were really high for me. Anyway.
Yeah, that is a shout. I wonder though, if they were gonna make changes to this for TV, I wouldn't have minded Henry and Sam's fate being a bit different. And like you said, there's a crossover of paths, and they got to go their own way. And we just don't maybe ever see them again. I think that would have been an interesting kind of thing, because I don't think you really maybe needed that level of bleakness, I think, at the end of this episode as well.
Okay.
And that would have been, I think that would have been a nice welcome change, I think.
Okay.
From the game.
I disagree slightly on that, and let me kind of talk about what, and we're obviously going to get into this, but we may as well just have the conversation now. We're talking about it anyway. So for me, I think that was necessary for what we're saying, because we've been having this conversation about Ellie the past few weeks, and is she a psychopath? And Ellie's a complicated character. She has a lot of different evolutions to go through as time goes on. And kind of we need her to go on that journey with her. And we kind of wondered, would Joel just bring her back to the light? And we've seen that happen, like there, where like, this week you have Joel kind of more accepting of the father role, and kind of you can see him kind of softening as time goes on. And that's just an evolution of what we discussed last week. But I think there's a bit of push-pull now with Joel and Ellie. Like for me, the ending and the way it happened was important to keep because it humanized Ellie. Having Sam around humanized Ellie, and losing Sam really brought it home. It made her a bit more like Joel, if that makes sense, because she kind of learned what it was to, not that she was Sam's carer, but like she did care for Sam and she looked after him and she tried to cure him. Do you know what I mean? And then she kind of felt what Joel felt when Sarah died, for example, like in caring for someone and losing someone, and there's her stakes. Whereas Joel, for example, I think it was important to get this because when that happened, we're seeing Joel soften, but when that happened, I think Joel was reminded of, oh, that's how it feels to lose someone that you care for. Like he saw what Henry did and how Henry reacted, and if Tommy hadn't been there, Joel could have done the exact same thing once Sarah died. You know what I mean? He could have easily tried the gun himself. Because I think that needed to happen to kind of push our characters both closer together and further away at the same time. Do you know what I mean?
That's a fair point. Yeah, I get what you mean.
Being both very much affected. We'll circle back to that anyway, because again, we'll get into the ending. But like, Ish, we spoke about it last week, and we kind of said that we were hoping they could actually like just do a flashback or something or flesh out this story.
Yeah,
they didn't. And kind of Craig Mazin and Neil Druckmann spoke about this on the HBO podcast, and they said they actually did. And I was very happy with this because they're like, we talked about it and we're like, we could easily do this.
Oh, no way.
But they were like, I don't think we could do it better than what happens in your imagination in the games by reading it. And we'll actually leave that there for gamers. It's incentive for the gamers to read it, but we'll throw in that reference. Again, I'm not saying that that's the right thing, but I felt very seen. Like, I'm like, that meant something to you too when you actually thought about it. What did you feel about having it just kind of just the little nods that they had to that? Because again, like,
because it was really just the picture, wasn't it, of the two. Like, you can kind of, I think it's good that you can kind of put your own story maybe as to what happened there, or who Ish was. Of maybe they were a Fedra soldier that turned against Fedra and has set up this community as well. I think that's a really cool. It's just like having something as simple as that, and letting if the audience cares about it, or even gamers as well, decide what they want that to be. I think is a smart choice, I think, to do, because like you're right, they're so limited on time. And even now I'm at the end of this episode, I'm like, we've only like 4 to go, and there's so much more story to tell. Having an Ish flashback,
flashback works.
having an Ish flashback would maybe have just kind of cut into time kind of better spent in other places. But I love this. It was just that little reference where it was like watching the first episode again, where you're like, hey, it's that. It's the Leonardo DiCaprio meme all over again.
I'd forgotten, as much as I remembered the story, I'd forgotten about the picture, and that was the way, because I'm like, that was such a meaningful moment. For anyone who doesn't know, like, again, I'm kind of torn between two minds of what to tell you. I recommend, first and foremost, either play the game, or if you're not a gamer, there's like a cinematic at the end of the series. Like, follow through the series if you haven't played the game. Is first thing I'd say, because look, you're here for the ride anyway. There's no point in spoiling it for yourself for the end of the series. But there is a cinematic playthrough of it on YouTube. What I'll do is I'll actually link to it. So by the time you see this, it'll be up on the Page 180 Pod Twitter. So I'll link to it through that. There's a cinematic playthrough where someone has gone through all of the game, and they've condensed it and edited it down in a cinematic style. Like, they played it through and got the most dramatic shots of even like normal character actions and so on. And that way you can follow the story. So it's around 5 hours in total, and you can kind of get the story of Ish. But basically, it was essentially what you saw. It was, they basically, rescued a bunch of kids, tried to give them a normal life in the underground. In the game, you get a bit more of how it happens, and I kind of encourage you to kind of explore that as well. That's there if you kind of want more, like, because this is going to be the type of show we're going to miss when it's over. But again, like there's ways to do that. So yeah, no, that was really good, and I felt really seen, and I'm glad they at least acknowledged it as well, because that was an important part to me, and I know obviously we discussed it last week to yourself too.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the NPCs. We were a bit on the fence about them last week. And like, so again, on the podcast, Mazin and Druckmann, they spoke about not wanting to make them generic bad guys and give them a sense of purpose. And we've kind of discussed that already. But now we can kind of, now that they are no more, because they sent the entire army in after 2 children. And they got kind of what they deserved when they infected. How did you feel about that side of things? So how did you feel? Did they succeed in kind of fleshing out them? Was that worthwhile doing? Or could they just have been generic bad guys and we focus on kind of the people we need to focus on?
Like, I get what they're going for and why they did it. I think Kathleen wasn't, I don't buy her as a villain at all. As her, like, I think the actress even that plays her, I don't buy her as being a villain. But they kind of just went a bit too pantomime with it in terms of her like proper arch villain, like kind of. It was just a bit too over the top for me. And you got Perry there, who's like, "What are you doing? But I'm gonna follow you anyway because your brother was sound." And that's it didn't work for me with her at all. It wasn't believable, and it sucks because like I get what they were trying to do, and that didn't really flow for me. It is always great though seeing a villain like her ignoring a problem and then having that problem come back to bite them at the end, literally. It's always satisfying seeing that. But yeah, it didn't really work for me. It's too many stupid decisions.
Yeah. And like, I think I admire that they went for it. I respect the fact that they went for it, even if for me it didn't fully work. I don't know if it's necessarily a problem with the portrayals. Like, I think Melanie Lynskey, the actress who played Kathleen, people might know her from Yellowstone as well. She's kind of got a cult following, and people are very happy to see her in this. She put up a tweet and a thread kind of about, what she was looking to do. And she was looking to kind of give a voice to people in society that you wouldn't necessarily see, like particularly women in society who you wouldn't necessarily see in positions of power, but they actually have a lot to offer in that role. And she wanted to kind of give that perspective of that. And again, I admire that she did. And I think she did her best with what was given, but I think there just wasn't the time. Do you know what I mean? We had so much to get to that you'd almost needed to be a season in unto itself to be able to flesh out and get what they wanted to achieve.
Like, I wanted to know her brother to make it her actions seem justified.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like, rather than just know that he was a good lad. Like, and that's all. Like, why was he a good guy? Like, all we learned is that, like, he said to forgive Henry, which, okay, yeah, we like Henry, so sound lad, fair play. But that's it. Like, there's no example of him doing anything. And I know Perry kind of made that point where he's like, yeah, he was nice, but he didn't actually do anything. You got rid of Fedra, so we're going to follow you. But again, yeah, I would have liked that perspective.
It's like you're there just because you're his sister a little bit, and they're just like, that's the reason they're following her. That's the way I kind of felt it was portrayed anyway in the show. And yeah, it just didn't really work for me, unfortunately. But it's interesting that thread. I must read that thread though, that of what you were saying about portraying certain people in society kind of as that character, because like nobody's perfect, and then if you do have that revenge in you all you want or all you can see is revenge, and you're putting it over these really big problems that you should be dealing with. And I guess everybody can relate to that a bit as well, kind of like if you're it's very human. But I wanted a bit more context of her brother and what he did, and why she was so hell-bent on this revenge.
I'd agree. And again, like, it'd just be, if they had 5 more episodes, I probably loved everything because they would have had time to flesh out. But it is what it is, and that's fine. Again, this is a good episode. I enjoyed it quite a lot. So,
I do feel like we're being a bit negative because I also loved it as well. I feel like we're getting nitpicky with it.
Well, like, it is what it is, and I think it's fair because, again, I think other people probably might have felt that way as well, or maybe you didn't. And feel free to tweet us in if you think we're being too harsh now. Let's talk about things that I think we'll agree on in terms of positives. Okay. let's talk about the infected for the first time. As expected, we got a bloater here. And we got the attack. And if you're looking to make now, again, I'm not going to do the past few weeks. I've kind of done a video game section where I'm like, this is the similarities to the video game. I think now, and I think from here on out, as I'm trying to map it out in my head, the last few episodes, I think it's going to be very faithful to the game from here on out because there's a lot of story. I think early on they needed to kind of flesh out a lot of stuff because there's a lot of empty gameplay that happens in the early stages because you need to learn how to play the game and you need to just learn how to fight and take out characters and stuff. Whereas once you know how to do that, they get really into the story and there's constantly stuff coming at you. So I think it's going to stay very faithful. So I'm not going to do that side by side comparison. But and I kind of assume that everything is like the game unless we tell you otherwise. But this was, in one hand, very similar to the game, like the sniper part, and again Joel trying to take out the NPCs, and then the infected coming along. But it was much more intense in the game. There was a lot more, and they happened a lot faster. And again, we not only did we get bloaters, we also got child clickers, who are contortionists, which we don't get any of that in the game. That's brand new. What were your thoughts on the first real big infected attack? The only time we've seen them move in this is kind of the end of tests, and there wasn't really a battle there. This is the first proper big infected battle scene, which people said they were missing out of this. So what was your thoughts? They really gave it to us here. What was your own thoughts?
In spades. Like, one thing I will say, I didn't curse as much watching this as I did playing the game with a fucking sniper. I got killed so many times in that. But as the first huge proper wave of clickers and stalkers and runners, it was panic, and it was just the intensity of them coming out of that hole. And there's fuck all soldiers, and then you got poor Ellie and Sam and Henry just in the middle of it all then as well. And it's just, at that point, I didn't know what they were going to do with Henry and Sam as well, if they're going to change it. And I was like pure kind of like being a little bit drunk watching this last night as well. But I think my emotions were probably a bit higher. But like t-shirt over my face, just being like, oh shit. But the pure panic in that was always just geniusly done. And then you have the initial wave, and you think, oh, this is absolute terrifying, and then you see the hand come up with the bloater. And from playing the game, like, you know how badass this enemy like is as well. So it was great. I really, really loved it. One thing as well, actually, that was mentioned earlier in the episode, which I think gives this scene even more gravitas, is they're talking about having killed clickers before, and Sam is like, you've killed 2 clickers. This is like such a huge big deal to Henry and Sam that they've killed 2 of these guys. And then you get this whole emerging of tons of them coming out, and the pure panic I'd say Sam and Henry probably had of just seeing all of them compared to just 2 which they were terrified of was brilliant, like, as well. And I love that they emphasize that, how big a deal it is killing clickers, because it should be a big deal. And I love that about it. There's a little detail.
And when you do that, like, again, look, being honest, in the games, killing clickers, when you figure out how to do it, go out behind them, shiv them, grand. But like, it's not that hard after you get used to it. But the first time you come up against them, you're terrified, and you're like, oh my god, they move so quickly. As soon as I step on glass, they kill me. It is terrifying. So yeah, I agree with that. The power scaling is something they've got really right here. I loved how they handle the bloater. The bloater is essentially unkillable, and that should be the way. Now, it's in the video game, you have to kill him because you can't move without killing him. You can't have a bloater without fighting him, and you can't continue the game without killing them. So, but like, you have nail bombs, you've got Molotov cocktails, you've got flamethrowers, you've got stuff and you've got the shotgun as well, which will do the job for you. You're obviously not going to have that, and I love the power scaling here. Like Perry, the one thing we know about Perry is that he is a badass, and like, I loved the way that they show, like, because again, that is the way that they did that was like just the pulling, the beheading, just literally beheading.
It's the game.
Yeah,
it's how you get killed in the game, isn't it? If you get killed by the bloater,
it was awesome. But I loved the fact he was just firing shots after him, and the bloater's just like, you're tickling me, mate.
Yeah,
it was like, and that's what I like, because again, they've done that really well in the show. Because first off, there's a difference between you being Joel in the game and killing 300 people, and also like infected as you go throughout the game. That's different, because you start the game having your daughter killed, and there's this a big emotional reaction and this need for vengeance on behalf of the player, as well as just necessary to get through the stages of the game and wanting to continue onwards, that you have to kind of do that. So there's almost a disconnect in the way that there is with video games. We spoke about this, I think, in the very first episode. I don't think you can do that in a TV show. I think if you see Joel just walking up and straight up murdering people, like even the fact that they made a choice here, like when he encountered the sniper and he didn't want to kill him. He saw this is an old man and he's like, please, just put the gun down, wait here an hour. That's it. That's all you have to do. I don't want to kill it. And he's begging him not to do it. And then I think...
he goes for his gun, doesn't he?
Yeah, I think... and Mazen and Druckmann called this, he's like, he's going for death by cop. He knows he's going to die here, but he's like, look, I'm old. I've lived a life. Like, fuck this. Yeah, I'm done. And he's happy to kind of kill himself by kind of going after Joel, or take his chances at least. But like, again, it doesn't hit the same seeing murder, but also it wouldn't hit the same. We would, if it was as easy to kill the infected as it becomes in the game, as you have to get used to it, I don't think they'd have an impact. Whereas this had an impact because it's like, the guys are fucked. Did you know what this reminded me of? It reminded me of Game of Thrones. And it reminded me of...
the Bastards, is it?
No, it reminded me of... Do you remember Hard Home?
Oh, yeah.
The episode. So that is, for people who don't know it by episode name, it is where Jon Snow goes to the wall to try get the others to go along with him, and then the what you call the White Walkers attack in their thousands and quickly. But where it reminded me of it most was, now they were going for Fellowship of the Ring. Actually, they were going for Fellowship of the Ring where the goblins attack that scene. But I found it was Hard Home because it was like there was that quiet stage where it was like, what's going to happen here? And then all of a sudden it was so intense so quickly. And it's like, you're going to fucking die. And it's like, oh my God. And even when you know what's happening, and even when you know who has to live and who has to die, like, again, you're kind of like, I'm pretty sure Ellie's not dying, like whatever about Henry and Sam, maybe they can if they want to change it, but Ellie's not dying. But even then you're kind of like, no, everyone's dead. Like when the kid clicker gets into the car with Ellie, you're like, she's dead. Yeah. There's no way out of this. There's no way out of this.
I don't want to nitpick again, but I did have a little problem with that too.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Clickers go for noise. There's a gunfight happening outside, and that clicker went in the car. I'm like, it probably would have gone towards the gunfire, but you needed to have that moment. It's a silly little nitpick, but I kind of felt like that clicker probably would have gone towards the gunfire, but at the same time, it's TV. You need some moments like that in TV, so I get it.
Yeah.
And it was nice having that weird fucking contortionist clicker.
Oh my God.
It was, you know what it reminded me of? Have you seen Twin Peaks?
I haven't. No, I missed that.
There's a character called Bob. It's a scene where, and he's a demon essentially that's climbing over this couch in a living room, and it was just in a really hot, just non-human-y kind of way, and it just reminded me of that. The way the clicker was just kind of contortioning over the seats of the car to get to Ellie. Yeah, that did give me kind of just that vibe, and just made the hair stand up in the back of your neck kind of thing. It's grim.
I hear that, and like I get what you're saying, and yeah, from like that part of it where, you know, we are going to be kind of,
it's stupid nerdy nitpick.
We have this, but like I do get it, but I think where you're going to use artistic license, I feel that both that, and also you could say the exact same thing about Kathleen's death, but it worked. Like, and then that even reminded me a bit of Game of Thrones. It was like the Arya Stark with the Night King. Kid just like jumping up from out of nowhere and just being like, you're dead. It was so bad. And it's just what you wanted for Kathleen as well. It's like, thank God we got to see her like get got. Yeah. So I loved it, but I get it. I do appreciate that. And it's a fair point to make.
And that is something though about her character that was, she's purposely annoying you, so when that death does happen, you're like cheering. And I think that's kind of maybe what they were trying to go for, and I get that like as well, because I did cheer.
You had to. She was a good heel in that sense. Like,
that's exactly what it is. Yeah, that's a really good point. Yeah, good heel.
Yeah. Let's talk about the end then, and kind of where they re-traumatize us with the kind of retelling of that. Certain like obviously creative license taken to kind of amplify it as well, like Ellie kind of trying to cure him with her blood. And And then there were little bits where, like, for example, he told her that, like, I don't think that happened in the game where he told her that he was sick, but they had that relationship. And then like Ellie kind of trusted him. Like she didn't go out and tell Joel, because like Joel would have been like within seconds, Sam would have been dead. Like and I think she knew that as well. So she wanted to kind of believe. How did that hit for you, the Henry and Sam death scene? I know obviously we had a discussion around whether they should have gone different, but like with the way that they did it.
I will say I loved, and it was heartbreaking, I say, but I did love how they did it, of just the desperation of Ellie trying to use her own blood to cure this. It was absolutely heartbreaking, because you're like, that's not how it works, but she's just trying. And I was seeing a lot of people complain about that online, that it was a bit silly, like what are you doing trying to like rub your blood on it? But I think it was just because she's a kid, like she doesn't know.
He is a kid.
She's just trying whatever she knows. And I loved that desperation, like, you'll be fine, you'll be better in the morning, and they just leave it in the morning. And it was that, will you wait up with me all night as well? Like, oh man, that was hard. And I did think that was done better in the show than the game.
Yeah, like they're able to kind of have those little character beats in that, because they needed to kind of flesh it out. I didn't hate it at all, because there's two different things at play there. Ellie is, for the first time in her life, getting to experience being a caregiver and being the person like in that role rather than being cared for. So there's part of it where, she doesn't want to, like, I don't hate that decision to do it, because first off, she's a child. She doesn't know how vaccine works. She's just told that, like, she's immune.
You're immune.
And she can help save humanity by doing it. So she's like, you know what? We're gonna bust out the vaccine powers. But kids don't know how vaccines are made. Fucking A. None of us knew how vaccines were made until COVID happened. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And we learned a lot very quickly. So like, again, she's like, I'm gonna just go for this, and I'm fine with her doing that. Why not? And if she's ever gonna go for it, it's gonna be now. But there's also two other things at play. One is there's a kid who's confiding in you, who's worried, who's scared. First off, she's not going to want that to happen. So she's going to like try convince herself that this kid's not going to die on my watch. But then there's that part of it where even when like if you're looking after a kid or someone vulnerable like that, and even if they're fucked, you still have that instinct to want to protect them or make them feel better. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think part of it was that as well, where she's like, no, it's okay. Don't panic. Please don't be scared. You know what I mean? And I think it was just a combination of things. So I didn't hate that decision at all. I thought that was really good.
Him kind of clearly being scared because he's bit and he didn't want to tell anybody about it. And then they kind of exchange what they're scared of then as well, their fears. And that it just got more and more just heartbreaking. And it really, whatever it was psychopath Ellie we had in the last few episodes, this really humanized her in a huge, huge way.
It's interesting because we didn't see that coming. We're like, she has to come back in some way. She can't just continue to go down this path. And obviously we were talking about whether it was Joel. Again, for what we think is coming, I don't think that could have been possible here. We didn't think it would be Sam. We just didn't see that coming, but that's exactly what happened. Also as well, that's a great call out. And I love that scene where they were kind of sharing their fears. There's one thing that, again, I think is an important takeaway from this. Ellie kind of sharing, I don't want to end up alone. That's something that I think, take a mental note of that, everyone. And this isn't giving away spoilers. It'll just, knowing that and remembering that wasn't a throwaway line. That is Ellie telling us something fundamental to her character. And when you see her make decisions, and I think even as far as the next episode, this will begin to become relevant. When you see her making decisions, that fear of abandonment and that fear of ending up alone, that's core in everything that Ellie does, and it's very crucial to her character. So again, just view everything Ellie does through that lens of she's a person who doesn't want to end up alone, and even the decisions that she makes that are nonsensical, like seconds later trying to cure Sam with her hand. Like, that's what's driving that. You know what I mean? She'll try anything to not lose people around her, because think about it, she's an orphan. She suffered a lot of loss, presumably. We haven't really got into that. I feel like we're going to. She's spoken about hurting people and stuff before, so she's alluded to stuff like that. So there's I think that's something that's very important to kind of take away and understand about Ellie. The ending then, obviously Joel burying Henry and Sam, taking time where I don't think Joel necessarily previously would have done something like that.
That's a fair point, yeah.
Yeah, what did you think of that? And as well, obviously, then you kind of led Ellie. I'm sorry, that broke me. That just killed me. Like that killed me worse than anything. And I'm like, I knew all of this was coming, but that I'm sorry just ended me completely. I was watching it with a friend there. I watched it a second time with a friend, and they were kind of being a bit cynical around it, and they were saying like, oh no, this isn't that bad. Like, again, like, you know, it's sad, but like, I'm not going to cry. And then it's like, that's not the part. And then literally when they did, I'm sorry, they're like, oh my fucking God.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, that's the part.
That's the part. Like, yeah.
What were your thoughts on that kind of little addendum that's...
I loved it in terms of how that ended, and her, do you know what? There's a part, I think, after the sniper bit in the game, isn't there, where you do come across a kid's grave. And I think Joel says some line of like, this grave's too small to be an adult, or just something like that, and you kind of just alludes to it being a kid. And it's like that shot of the two graves kind of it was a little throwback, I think, to that, which is a really nice little touch. But it was Ellie walking off, I think, as well, and it's been like, come on, like Joel would have done. It was like it was like they've changed. It's like you saying earlier, they've absolutely just changed their roles a little bit after this, and I loved that about it. Brilliant end. That's what really, and like you said, it's like heartbreaking, but that passing, I don't even say passing of the torch, but it's just switching of roles, really, I think it was just a great way to end that episode.
And it's going to continue to be in flux. Like, so like, you know, now you have Ellie being the hardened one and Joel being the one who's like, we have to pay respect to these people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Whereas previously Joel's like, yeah, let's leave these people dead in the highway because I'm going to protect the people I care about. You know what I mean? That's how far Joel is coming back. But also as well, now you have Joel obviously being very, like, he's going to have time to think. Like, they say they're going to walk to Wyoming. That's a long ass walk from Kansas City. They're going to walk to Wyoming, and presumably during that walk, he's going to think and reflect on, Jesus, I just spent time with someone who lost everything. And like we kind of said, Sam, the way Henry's life ended could have easily been the way Joel's life ended. You know what I mean? And that's going to kind of be playing in his mind. So I think now they're both in very traumatized, vulnerable states. They're both bonded, I think, because of that trauma. But I think they're also going to be mildly pushed apart because of that trauma, because I think it's setting off fears that they have. It's setting off fears for Ellie of her not wanting to end up alone, and it's setting off fears for Joel of, if you care about someone too much, you know, you can get really hurt. Yeah. And like, I think that sets us up in a really, really interesting place ahead of next week. So overall thoughts, reflections, kind of where's this sitting with you in terms of the overall episodes? Is this the best episode of the season? Where are you kind of ranking this one?
This is number 2 for me. I still think episode 3 is the best one they've done, to be honest. It really is. But this is probably number 2, I think, even though, like, if you've listened to this entire thing now,
you mightn't feel that way.
I hated this episode. No, I did. I've loved it. I watched it twice now, and I've loved it both times. I just kind of had different, like, experiences watching it drunk and sober, I
think. Real duality. Like, this is a guy, he's doing his homework, he's getting drunk, especially to see what's the drunk experience like.
Better.
That's amazing. I thought it was gas. It's like, wow, you're a weird drunk. Anyway, look,
emotions are running high.
We're gonna take a break from The Last of Us next week, but we will be back to it for the last 3 episodes. So when we come back, we're going to kind of reflect on it. We're going to have a double kind of episode catch up, and we're going to see where we're at then as we're kind of veering towards the end. We're nearly there. There's only 4 episodes left, man. This is passing way too quickly, but
so much story.
I know, so much good stuff still to come, though. I cannot wait. Kev, always a pleasure. Follow Kev online at Kev Fan Club, and looking forward to continuing to discuss this with you in the future weeks.
Can't wait.